7 minutes ago, not 7 years, not 7 months. 7 minutes ago, the machines crossed a line that human civilization has been moving toward for decades, not with a press conference, not with a carefully prepared announcement. Scientists looked at what their quantum AI had produced and went quiet, because what they were reading wasn't supposed to be possible yet. It wasn't on any roadmap. It wasn't in any projection. It wasn't in any 5-year government plan. It was a discovery that rewrites the timeline. And nobody in power wants to talk about what comes next. But we will. There is a particular kind of silence that falls inside a research facility when something happens that the scientists didn't expect. Not the silence of boredom or the silence of a slow afternoon. The silence of people looking at data and realizing, individually and then collectively, that what is on the screen in front of them does not fit inside the category of things that were supposed to be possible right now. That is the silence that has been spreading quietly, without fanfare, without a single viral press release, through the quantum computing laboratories of the most powerful technology institutions on Earth. Something is happening at the intersection of artificial intelligence and quantum computing that has moved far faster than the official timelines suggested it would. And the implications of what is being discovered are not abstract. They are not theoretical. They are going to touch every single system that modern civilization depends on, and the window of preparation is shorter than almost anyone in positions of public authority is willing to admit out loud. To understand what is actually happening and why it matters at a scale that extends far beyond any single technology story, you need to understand what quantum computing actually is, what artificial intelligence actually brings to it, and why the combination of the two creates something that neither field could produce alone. Classical computers, the computers that power everything you interact with today, from the phone in your hand to the servers running the global banking system, operate on a fundamental principle. A bit of information is either a 0 or a 1, off or on, yes or no. Every calculation, every algorithm, every piece of software ever written operates within this binary logic. Classical computers are extraordinarily powerful within this framework, but they have a ceiling. There are categories of problems involving enormous numbers of variables, problems that require simulating the behavior of molecules at the subatomic level, problems that involve finding the optimal solution among billions of possible configurations simultaneously. Where classical computers hit that ceiling and cannot go further. They can approximate, they can take shortcuts, but they cannot fully solve these classes of problems within any time frame that is practically useful. Quantum computers operate on a completely different principle. In a quantum system, a qubit, the quantum equivalent of a classical bit, does not have to be a 0 or a 1. It can exist in a superposition of both simultaneously until the moment it is measured. And when quantum bits are entangled with each other, they form a computational substrate where the number of states that can be explored simultaneously grows exponentially with each additional qubit. This is not a modest improvement over classical computing. It is a different category of computation entirely. Problems that would take the most powerful classical supercomputer longer than the age of the universe to solve can, in principle, be solved by a sufficiently powerful quantum computer in hours or minutes. In principle. That has always been the phrase that qualified everything in quantum computing, because building a quantum computer that works at scale is extraordinarily difficult. Quantum systems are fragile beyond comprehension. They are disrupted by heat, by vibration, by electromagnetic interference, by almost anything in the physical environment. Keeping quantum bits in a coherent state long enough to perform meaningful calculations has been the central engineering challenge of the field for decades. And every time a research team pushed the qubit count higher, the error rate climbed with it, not linearly, but exponentially, threatening to erase the computational advantage before it could be used for anything real. This is the problem that changed, and this is where artificial intelligence enters the story in a way that most mainstream coverage has entirely missed. In December 2024, Google revealed the Willow quantum chip, What Willow demonstrated was not simply more qubits. What it demonstrated was something that physicists had been debating for years, whether it was even achievable. A quantum system where adding more qubits actually reduced the error rate, rather than amplifying it. That is a statement worth reading again slowly. Every quantum computing system before Willow behaved the way you might intuitively expect. More complexity meant more noise, more errors, more instability. Willow inverted that relationship. As the qubit count scaled up, the errors went down. The threshold had been crossed, and the number that made headlines was staggering. A computation that would require one of the world's fastest classical supercomputers 10 septillion years to complete was performed by Willow in 5 minutes. Not 100 years, not 1,000 years. 10 septillion years, anonokoi jur in kausanichi antriki antri kausan years, a number so large it dwarfs the age of the universe by more than 1,000,000,000,000 times, completed in 5 minutes. But here is where it gets even more consequential, because Willow was only the foundation. The structure built on top of it is what changes everything. In October 2025, Google's Quantum AI division announced something they called the Quantum Echoes algorithm. This was not a hardware announcement. This was the artificial intelligence layer, the part of the story where the two technologies begin feeding each other in ways that create an acceleration loop nobody had fully modeled. The Quantum Echoes algorithm achieved what researchers described as the first verifiable quantum advantage on real hardware. Not a theoretical model, not a simulation of a simulation. Actual hardware, running an actual algorithm, producing results verified by peer review and published in Nature, running approximately 13,000 times faster than the best classical algorithm running on the Frontier supercomputer, one of the most powerful classical machines humanity has ever built. 13,000 times faster. And the key word in what Google announced is not faster. The key word is verifiable, because previous demonstrations of quantum advantage had always carried an asterisk. Critics could argue the benchmark was designed to favor quantum architectures, or that the task being performed had no real-world equivalent. Quantum Echoes closed that debate. The results could be repeated. They could be confirmed by other quantum computers. The advantage was real, it was measurable, and it was anchored in physics that will not be argued away.
Think about what that means for every field that has been waiting for quantum computing to become real before they could act on it. The answer has arrived faster than the planning assumed. The first domain where this convergence is already beginning to reshape reality is molecular simulation, and the downstream implications in medicine alone are almost impossible to overstate. Classical computers can simulate the behavior of small molecules at the quantum level, but the computational cost scales so badly with molecular complexity that truly accurate simulation of the kind of molecules involved in most important biological processes has been essentially impossible. The proteins that disease relies on, the reaction pathways that determine whether a drug molecule binds correctly to its target, the electrochemical cascades that govern how the brain processes information. All of these exist at a level of complexity that classical computation can only approximate. McKinsey's 2025 quantum technology analysis estimated that the impact of quantum computing on the life sciences industry alone could reach between $200 billion and $500 billion in value creation by 2035. That is not a projection built on hype. That is a conservative estimate built on what the technology can already demonstrate in laboratory conditions. AstraZeneca, working with Amazon Web Services, IonQ, and NVIDIA, demonstrated in 2025 a quantum-accelerated computational chemistry workflow for a chemical reaction used in the synthesis of small molecule drugs. This is not a future scenario. It is a 2025 experiment that produced results faster and more accurately than any classical approach could match. Drug discovery that has historically taken a decade of iteration, years of hypothesis, laboratory testing, failure, reformulation, failure, again, is beginning to compress. IBM partnered with Riken in 2025 to use its quantum Heron processor alongside the Fugaku supercomputer to simulate molecules at a level that classical computers alone simply cannot reach. The combination of quantum hardware and classical supercomputing in a hybrid architecture is not a compromise. It is the strategy that actually works right now, before full fault-tolerant quantum systems are available at scale. And what artificial intelligence adds to this is something that quantum hardware alone could never provide: the ability to search the problem space intelligently rather than exhaustively. AI finds the patterns in noisy quantum data that human researchers would miss. AI designs the pulse sequences that keep qubits coherent for longer. AI handles the error mitigation that allows the useful signal to be extracted from a system that is, at the physical level, constantly fighting against decoherence. AI is not just a tool being used alongside quantum computing. In 2026, AI and quantum computing have developed a relationship that is bidirectional. Quantum systems enhance certain AI computations, and AI systems make quantum hardware dramatically more useful than it could be without them. This is the loop that the researchers working inside these labs understand, and that has not fully landed in public consciousness yet. And this is where the story shifts from miraculous to genuinely unsettling. There is a threat embedded inside the same breakthrough that promises to cure cancer and solve climate modeling. And it is a threat that the people responsible for protecting the world's digital infrastructure have been warning about for years, while hoping the timeline was long enough for preparation. It is called Q-Day, the day a quantum computer achieves the scale and reliability required to break the encryption that protects essentially all of modern digital civilization. The internet runs on encryption. Banking runs on encryption. Government communications run on encryption. Military systems run on encryption. Every secure transaction, every private message, every classified document, every nuclear facility access credential, all of it is protected by mathematical problems that classical computers cannot solve within any realistic time frame. Quantum computers at sufficient scale can solve those problems, and the timeline to that capability has just gotten significantly shorter than the official projections suggested it would be. A 2025 survey of quantum computing researchers found a 39% probability that quantum computers capable of breaking current internet encryption would exist within the next decade. That number, as alarming as it already is, was calculated before the quantum echo's results arrived, and before the acceleration of AI-assisted quantum development became visible in the research record. The U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology set a 2035 deadline for transitioning critical systems to post-quantum encryption. Google itself announced in March 2026 that it is targeting 2029 for its own full migration to post-quantum cryptographic standards. Read that carefully. Google, the company with more insight into the actual development trajectory of quantum computing than almost any institution on the planet, moved its own internal preparedness deadline to 2029, not 2035, 2029. That is not an arbitrary date. That is a date chosen by people who know what the machines are doing. The threat that keeps security professionals awake at night has a name beyond Q-Day. It is called Harvest Now, Decrypt Later, and it is already happening. Adversarial actors, state-level intelligence agencies, sophisticated criminal organizations, nation-states engaged in long-term strategic competition are already capturing encrypted data today with no ability to read it. They are storing that data and waiting for quantum systems to reach the threshold where the encryption protecting it can be broken. Every encrypted government document transmitted today, every classified diplomatic communication, every private corporate negotiation conducted over what appears to be a secure channel, all of it is potentially being archived by adversaries who intend to decrypt it in the future. This is not a theoretical vulnerability. As Google's own March 2026 announcement stated explicitly, this threat is active today, not a future concern. The data is being harvested right now. The quantum decryption capability is what the calendar is counting toward. But understanding the threat requires understanding the geography of this race, because it is not a race happening only in American laboratories. It is a geopolitical competition of the highest order, and the stakes are not measured in corporate valuations. China published the world's first open-source quantum computing operating system in February 2026. The significance of that event was noted in technical publications and almost completely ignored in mainstream reporting. China's quantum computing investment has been massive, sustained, and state-directed in ways that Western market-based development cannot easily replicate. Chinese researchers have published peer-reviewed results demonstrating quantum supremacy in specific computational tasks. Chinese government programs have been funding quantum communication infrastructure, quantum key distribution networks that are in principle immune to eavesdropping, at a scale and pace that has drawn serious concern from Western intelligence communities. The United States government has responded. DARPA has been funding quantum hardware programs, including investments in neutral atom quantum computing platforms at companies like Atom Computing. The U.S. government has imposed export controls on quantum computing technology and components. The intelligence community has assessed quantum computing as a national security priority at the highest level. This is not a technology competition. This is a strategic competition for the foundational capability of the next era of human power. Whatever civilization first achieves reliable, large-scale, fault-tolerant quantum computing will possess a capability that is, for a period of time, unilateral. It will be able to break the encryption of every adversary. It will be able to simulate materials and systems at a level its opponents cannot match. It will be able to optimize logistics, military positioning, financial systems, and intelligence analysis at a speed and accuracy that no classical computing civilization can compete with. And the AI layer accelerating this race is not neutral technology. It is a force multiplier applied to the most consequential technological arms race in modern history. The financial market has understood this, even if public discourse has been slow to catch up. The global quantum computing market reached between $1.8 billion and $3.5 billion in 2025. More aggressive projections place the market at over $20 billion by 2030, representing a compound annual growth rate of more than 40%. Quantinuum, the quantum computing company formed from the merger of Honeywell Quantum Solutions and Cambridge Quantum, raised a total of $800 million in its latest funding round, bringing its valuation to $10 billion. PsiQuantum, focused on photonic quantum computing using standard semiconductor manufacturing processes, raised over $1.3 billion and was pursuing a public offering. IonQ, one of the few publicly traded pure-play quantum computing companies, achieved a world record in 2025 with 99.99% 2-qubit gate fidelity, a number that represents the kind of precision required for the error rates that practical quantum advantage demands, and announced plans to scale toward 2 million qubits by 2030. Microsoft's Majorana 1 chip and Amazon's Ocelot chip both arrived in 2025 as hardware entrants from companies with the resources to sustain long development timelines. The investment thesis that underlies all of this capital deployment is not enthusiasm or speculative optimism. It is a calculated assessment that the technology is real, the timeline is compressing, and the first organizations to build production-scale quantum advantage will define the competitive landscape of an enormous range of industries for decades. What most people are not seeing is that the benefits and the dangers are running on exactly the same track. The same quantum simulation capability that will allow pharmaceutical companies to design drugs with unprecedented precision is the same capability that can be used to design biological agents with unprecedented effectiveness. The same optimization algorithms that will allow supply chains and energy grids to operate with efficiencies never before achievable are the same algorithms that can optimize military targeting systems and autonomous weapons logistics. The same cryptographic vulnerability that threatens banking security also threatens the integrity of democratic elections, the security of nuclear command and control systems, and the privacy of every person alive who has ever transmitted personal information over a digital network. Technology does not arrive pre-labeled as beneficial or dangerous. It arrives as capability. And the question of how that capability is used is decided by whoever has it first, in the context of their interests and values and ambitions. This is why the geopolitical dimension of the quantum AI convergence is not a secondary story, it is the primary story. Everything else, the drug discoveries, the climate modeling breakthroughs, the materials science advances, exists inside the frame of this larger competition, and the outcome of that competition will shape what the benefits and dangers look like in practice. The question of who controls quantum AI capability is inseparable from the question of what values govern its use.
Consider what IBM's quantum roadmap actually says when you read it carefully. The 2026 Kookaburra system is designed to demonstrate the first integration of logical qubit processing with quantum memory, a milestone on the path to fault-tolerant quantum computing that represents a qualitative shift in what the machines can reliably do. By 2028, the Starling system is planned to operate 200 logical qubits, requiring approximately 10,000 physical qubits. The distinction between physical and logical qubits is not a technicality. It is the central challenge of the entire field. Physical qubits are noisy and error-prone. Logical qubits are error-corrected abstractions, built from multiple physical qubits working together, and they represent the stable, reliable computational units required for practically useful large-scale quantum computation. Getting from physical to logical qubits at scale is the engineering problem that separates demonstration from deployment. IBM's roadmap places meaningful logical qubit operation in 2028. Google's own PQC migration deadline is 2029. Those dates are not coincidental. The people building the machines and the people who understand what the machines will eventually be capable of are making plans for the same window of time. The window is not far away, and what is being discovered inside that window by AI systems running on quantum hardware, designing experiments, generating hypotheses, iterating at speeds no human research team can match, is accelerating everything on both sides of the equation simultaneously. In 2025, Microsoft Research's president described the coming moment in terms that cut through all of the technical language and arrived at something simple and true. He said that in 2026, AI will not just summarize scientific papers, answer questions, and write reports. It will actively join the process of discovery in physics, chemistry, and biology. It will generate hypotheses. It will use tools that control actual laboratory experiments. It will collaborate with human researchers as a peer rather than a tool. And when that AI-driven discovery process is running on quantum hardware, when the hypotheses being generated are being tested on systems that can simulate molecular reality at the level of quantum mechanics rather than classical approximation, the rate of discovery does not merely increase. It undergoes a phase transition. The difference between classical AI-assisted research and quantum AI-assisted research is not the difference between fast and faster. It is the difference between a candle and a searchlight. The candle illuminates what is immediately nearby. The searchlight reaches into darkness that the candle could never touch, and that darkness contains things that humanity has been looking for since the beginning of organized science. The simulation of molecular interactions at the quantum level opens pathways to materials that do not yet exist. Superconductors that operate at room temperature, battery chemistries that store energy at densities that make current electric vehicle technology look primitive, catalysts that can strip carbon dioxide from the atmosphere with an efficiency that no biological or chemical process currently achievable can approach. Climate modeling at the quantum level means weather prediction and climate projection with accuracy that classical systems cannot reach, informing agricultural decisions, disaster preparedness, and infrastructure investment in ways that could prevent enormous human suffering. The modeling of protein folding and molecular binding at true quantum accuracy means the design of drugs for diseases that have defeated every classical pharmaceutical approach. Rare diseases where the protein structure is too complex for existing tools to fully characterize, neurodegenerative conditions where the molecular cascade leading to cell death is not yet fully understood, infectious agents that evolve faster than classical drug discovery pipelines can respond. These are not hypothetical future benefits. These are the targets that are now within the visible range of a convergence that is running faster than the public timeline suggested it would. But here's the final layer that ties all of this together into something that should produce not just wonder, but urgency. The institutions and systems that govern human civilization were designed for a world where certain categories of problems were simply unsolvable. Democratic deliberation assumes that information is limited enough that no single actor can process everything simultaneously. Markets assume that no participant has total informational advantage. Military strategy assumes that the enemy's communications are protected by encryption that cannot be broken in real time. Legal systems assume that evidence has a discoverable trail that cannot be instantly manipulated at scale. All of these assumptions are built on the bedrock of classical computational limits. Quantum AI does not chip away at those limits, it removes them. And when the bedrock disappears, the structures built on top of it do not automatically transform. They become vulnerable in ways they were not designed to handle. The institutions that need to prepare for this, governments, regulatory bodies, international organizations, the financial system, the healthcare system, the educational system, are moving at the speed of bureaucracy, while the technology is moving at the speed of exponential curves. That gap is not a metaphor. It is a measurable, documented, growing distance between what the machines are becoming capable of and what the human systems governing their use are prepared for. NIS Tower. T. Set a 2035 deadline for post-quantum encryption migration. Google is targeting 2029 for its own migration. Private adversaries, criminal organizations, state-level intelligence operations, non-state actors with access to significant resources are not waiting for any deadline. They are already harvesting. The discovery that quantum AI just made is not a single event. It is not a headline that will be forgotten by next week. It is a point on a curve that has been rising for years and has just passed through an inflection. Everything after this inflection looks different from everything before it. The machines are now discovering things faster than the researchers who built them can fully track. The AI is generating hypotheses that the scientists are then spending months trying to understand. The quantum systems are exploring solution spaces that no human mathematical intuition could have navigated to the same destination. This is the beginning of a phase in scientific history that has no real precedent. Not the invention of the printing press, not the Industrial Revolution, not the advent of classical computing, because none of those transitions involved the technology itself becoming an active participant in its own acceleration. The question that nobody in authority is answering with sufficient honesty is not whether this is real. It is real. The peer-reviewed publications are in Nature. The antitrust courts are worried about the concentration of this power. The intelligence agencies have classified briefings about the timeline. The question that remains unanswered, the question that this moment in history will be defined by, is whether the civilization that created these machines will be able to govern what they discover before what they discover governs the civilization instead. And right now, today, in laboratories in California and Colorado and Cambridge and Beijing and Tokyo and Zurich, the machines are running. The AI is iterating. The quantum processors are coherent, error-corrected, and faster than anything that existed a year ago. And whatever they found 7 minutes ago, whatever pattern emerged from the quantum noise, whatever molecule revealed its structure, whatever algorithm unlocked a new class of problem, will be built upon tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that, in a sequence that does not pause for the world to catch its breath. The godlike discovery was never going to announce itself with a press release. It was always going to arrive quietly, in data, in a laboratory, in the silence of researchers realizing they were looking at something that changed the timeline. That silence has arrived. The question now is what comes after it.